Islam, a holy covenant of the Asiatic nation. Ye are the children of one Father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother has given ye suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brother, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thine own blood. If thy brother's in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. At this time, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which I draw my strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise giving praise to Allah. I'd like to give praise to Allah because it is Allah who is the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the founder of our address, the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to all of those and honor to all of you that have and will aid and assist us in this, our divine and gigantic mission, the uplifting of fallen humanity. And last but not least, I'd like to give honor to effort, because so many of us don't even try. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals that's talked about in Revelation, that none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. The verse that I'm going to read from today in chapter 3, and the title of the chapter is Elihu's Lesson, the Unity of Life. And I read until I stop, and it's read on this wise. Again, Elihu met his pupils in the sacred grove and said, No man live unto himself, for every living thing is bound by cord to every other living thing. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will love and not demand love in return. They will not do to other men what they will not have other men do unto them. There are two selves, the higher and lower self. The higher self is human spirit, clothed with soul made in the form of Allah. The lower self, the carnal self, the body of desires, is a reflection of higher self distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. The lower self is an illusion and will pass away. The higher self is Allah in man and will not pass away. The higher self is the embodiment of truth. The lower self is truth reversed, and so is falsehood manifest. The higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. The lower self is what the higher self is not. The lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. The higher self is mother of virtues and the harmonies of life. The lower self is rich in promises, but poor in blessedness and peace. It offers pleasure, joy, and satisfying gain, but gives unrest, misery, and death. We just had a reading of the Moorish Holy Quran, divinely prepared by our holy prophet Noble Drew Ali for our earthly and our divine salvation. Islam. Before I go into my subject matter, I want to talk for a few minutes about this chapter that I just read. And Noble Drew Ali, who founded the Moorish Science Temple of America, when he founded the Moorish Science Temple of America, he told all of the Moors that was following his instructions that whenever you open a meeting, all meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the circle 7, and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So I'm reading from a chapter 3, Elihu's lesson, and Elihu's lesson talking about the unity of life. And they said man had two selves. He said he have a higher self and he have a lower self. He said the higher self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life and breeds justice, mercy, love, and right. So when we talking about this higher self, we are talking about David and we are talking about Goliath. And they say the David of the light is purity, who slayed the strong Goliath of the dark and seeks to save your love upon the throne. So I'm looking right here. It's talking about the lower self. And it said that the lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that's on, which are the attributes of Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and the beast. And the reason why I'm going to talk briefly about this is because I'm looking at myself. When you find Noble Drew Ali and he found the Moorish Science Temple of America, he came to redeem us from our sinful ways and to warn us of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. So now, when we go to the Moorish Science Temple of America, our mission there is to overcome these foes that we have. See, there's a many foes that's going on in your life, and there's many foes that's going on in my life. And Noble Drew Ali have the antidote to redeem us from our sinful ways and to warn us of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. And this is what I'm going to talk about this evening also. So I want to show you something. When we talk about Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast, let's look at Lucifer. And a lot of time when we look at Lucifer as being something outside of ourselves. But Lucifer is a foe that you and I must overcome so we could be the strength of Allah made manifest. So when they say Lucifer, one of the great attributes of Lucifer is the bearer of light. Friction. When you talk about Satan, you're talking about one who's evil, clever, and wickedness. And all of these are attributes that I'm learning after I'm learning about Noble Drew Ali and talking to me about the Moorish Science Temple of America, because for many years, I've been trying to overcome a lot of these foes that's within me, but many are called and a few are chosen. And a lot of us is never going to overcome these foes because that's not our mission right now. Because a lot of times our mission is to do the things that's diametrically opposed to what Noble Drew Ali told us to do, and that is learning to love instead of hate. Learn to love what? Learn to love ourselves. Learning to love the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because he came with the methodology sent from Allah to tell us to redeem us from our sinful ways and go back to that state of mind of our forefathers, divine and national principles. Then you had Satan, you had the devil, you had the dragon, and you have the beast. And all of these are attributes. And these attributes are the things that I've been doing all my life. You know, these are the things that I didn't want to let go. Because, see, the lower self is strong. And by many times we are bowed down to carnal life. And we don't have the strength to overcome and give our life a will and sacrifice. But as we start studying the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we will do that. Now, I have something that I want to talk about briefly. And that is because the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Elizabeth just had a burial, and they was mourning for a lot of days. But in the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Moors that I come in contact with, something hit them real hard about Queen Isabella. And what that was this. In 1954, the brothers out of Washington, D.C., who was incarcerated, got a blessing. They got a blessing because there was a brother by the name of H. Scott Ill, who lived in New York City. And he was an old sheik. And he was in a place called Lexington, Kentucky. And when he was in Lexington, Kentucky, he met this brother named G.S. Hatchet-Bey and a lot of other brothers. All these brothers in these pictures with me because they are the ones that helped teach me. And G.S. Hatchet-Bey was instructed by A. Scott Ill to get in touch with a brother by the name of R. German Bey. And he wanted him to get in touch with brother R. German Bey because he wanted to establish a Moorish Science Temple of America. But we need to understand that the first 15 temples in the Moorish Science Temple of America, there was no temple in Washington, D.C. The only closest temple that we had in our mix was down in there, Virginia, and over in Baltimore. And this is where German Bey was at, over in Baltimore. And the instructors that he was taking from the prophet came through the Cook Bey brothers. And there was a brother, this brother Hatchet-Bey, and was asking German Bey to set up a Moorish Science Temple in the institution so the brother could learn about the prophet. So for 2 years, 54 all the way up to 56, the grand body was in disagreement. I can see why now. But the grand body was in disagreement with setting up a temple inside of those institutions. So German Bey broke away. He shouldn't have did that. He cried. Because you see brothers today, they with this temple, they with that temple, they with that temple. But German Bey say, the prophet said ain't but one. So he said, I feel bad about this. I feel bad about separating myself because there's brothers that's trying to learn about Prophet Noble Drew Ali and learn that nationality is the order of the day. So in 1956, it came fruition. And this is when German Bey was able to teach the brothers in Washington, D.C. about the teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And it was good basically because this guy Nabal, a guy that's out of Washington, D.C., I know him. He's the same brother that I had took with me when Tahaka Bey, when I went to D.C. recently, and I took him over there with me at a meeting with Tahaka Bey, hoping that I could aid in the system. See? But this brother here, Nabal, he and I was not with the proper grand body. The proper grand body was brother R. Love Ill, C. Kirkman Bey. And the reason why I'm speaking on that is because Sister Christina Price Bey, German Bey, and a few others who say that they in charge, they got to go back to from which they came. Because ain't but one prophet, ain't but one temple, ain't but one nation. The reason why I'm saying that is because before I came here to Portland, Oregon, I had an opportunity to pick a brother up at the airport who said he's the Grand Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And he came to our temples, and then I took him up to meet with a brother by the name of Grand Sheik R. Jones Bey. But the key was, in order for anybody to sit down with anybody, you're going to have to come under one something. So right now, he said, I can't meet with the brother because we don't know who he is and who he with, because there ain't but one prophet. Just like when you look in the Moorish Science Temple of America, you know, you ain't going to see but one temple, one prophet, and one nation. Ain't no, we with this one and we with that. Ain't but one. You look at C. Kirkman Bey, F. Nelson Bey, and J. Blake, you're going to find only one person that's in charge of that grand body. You go somewhere else, you can find 5 or 6. So now I got that out the way. Let me share something with you. Here's a picture right here. This picture was taken in 1975. This picture was taken in 1975, and I got my man Tumbleweed on there with me. I got Pleasant Bey and Graham Bey and the Muftis, and we got a lot of brothers here. So now we're in Preparation Center number 7. And Preparation Center number 7 was in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm giving you some signs because Drew Ali say we got to bring this back under one head like the prophet left it. So now I'm in Lewisburg. And the best part about it, I'm a few years younger than all them dudes, but I was in charge of the temple. And they had dudes coming to Louisville from everywhere. And they came, and this picture here, that's not important. They was coming from everywhere. And they had learned about the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And when they learned about Prophet Noble Drew Ali, they had a misunderstanding because one of the brothers, they call him Nabal. I got to mention his name because I took him over there with me. And he was a brother that I was trying to work with so we could try to help the Grand Sheik, R. Jones Bey, reestablish some things like the prophet said, because ain't but one prophet, one temple, and one nation. So he and I had a lot of meetings. Him and his buddy, Raymond Smith. I got to mention this because they just put me in his book. He just wrote a book. And when he wrote the book, this chump put me in the book. And he said he put me in the book because of my affiliation with the Moorish Temple of America, but he had no affiliation at all. But this is the same brother. They talked about me like that, and I'm with a different temple, but they got a book out now called Nathaniel McQueen Ill. And he was talking about his life as a gangster and as a Moor. See, in the Moorish Temple of America, you will never find no Moorish American that don't attend their meetings and keep in line with all necessities. But in the Moorish Science Temple, certain things we didn't allow. If you say you want to be a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, you had to live according to the laws of the prophet. And if you didn't live according to the laws of the prophet, then you couldn't be a part of this right here. I'm talking about 1975. This is when this brother wrote this book. And in that book, he was saying how many homosexuals he had and how many people that he took advantage of and went all up in them, and him and his buddy. I remember years ago, this is my show because I'm talking about something that needed to be talked about. And I had a show. I was the Grand Sheik in Petersburg, Virginia. And I had a partner named Robert Pondex. He went home. And when he went home, he introduced me to one of his friends named Daniel Dyson Ill. They called him Toby. And me and Toby was all right because we were doing some works of the prophet. But there was a brother that had got locked up in the hole for something called Raymond Smith. They locked him up. And they were going to send him back to Maryland and wasn't going to let him out. So we had the temple, Benson Hill, Stocks Bay, Port Hill. We wrote letters to the government and everywhere to try to help this brother because we needed this Bama to go down Virginia because he's from Virginia. And if he go down Virginia to that colony and help them there, then we can help bring this back under one head like the prophet left it. So they put him in a hole for some things, and we got him out. So when we got him out, about 7 days later, they called me to the office. Him and Dyson Ill was there, and when I got there, Cadillac was sitting over there, and Dyson Ill said, Lynch-Bey, I'm no longer your Grand Sheik. I'm Cadillac's Grand Sheik now. I said, brother, if y'all wanted the temple, you should have had the temple because you got all my friends and you know, people going to go with you anyway because they're scared of you. You got people wearing makeup. You got people doing things that's diametrical to the prophet. And I can't say nothing because everybody with you. You got everybody. You got all the connections. I got friends of mine that I was in love with and close to some of their family. They went against me because these dudes were so mean. These dudes were so mean. They had people doing everything that was under the teachings of the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So the key to that is that ain't but one prophet, one temple, one nation. You can't serve two masters at the same time. And I don't have no problem with someone calling me out when you're supposed to call me out, but you know good and well that is disrespectful to a Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali. You got all these people that you raping and just like little Chipper. Had a little brother that was up there in 1975 with me named Chipper. These dudes took these little brothers, raped them, and made them wear makeup and everything, and they was in our midst saying they Moorish Americans. But we wouldn't allow them in the temple. I'm talking about 75 now. See this picture here? This picture here was in 75. Those brothers wasn't allowed in the temple. Temple's number 7 in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, because you had to follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. And this is what's taking place now, because the prophet, when the prophet came on the scene, something that he told you and me. He told you and me that in 711, we went into Spain. And when we went into Spain to give Europe civilization. But let me stop right now, because you look at this right here. When you begin to talk about 1492, when the last stronghold of the Moors fell in Granada, Spain, you have to go even back right there when you're talking about Queen Isabella. You talking about Queen Isabella. And when you talking about Queen Isabella, don't be shocked that I'm getting ready to tell you that when they was mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth, and they was at Vatican Square, we have to be ever mindful that they took my forefather, they took your forefather, they buried them in Vatican Square. And when they buried them in Vatican Square, they took on the name. Now, they say Morocco got its independence March 2nd, 1956, from under the French rule. So now, if Morocco got its independence from under the French rule, who was the French? Who was the Dutch? Who was the Portuguese? And we are taking on names like Negro, colored, and black. And as long as we taking on names and principles that allude to slavery, we have no rights that a citizen is bound to respect. We can't even address the issues that we have. We cannot address the issue as a Negro, because Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. We cannot go as colored. Colored is anything painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. So we have an issue. There's a big subject matter. There's an issue, a supreme issue that we need to use to redeem that from which was lost. And that comes first by proclaiming your nationality. Everybody have a nationality except you and me. We don't look at it. We don't see it in play. I was looking at something last night, and people keep talking about the black man. There's no such thing as a black man. Man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So Queen Isabella, she said that they are the royal family. And they say that they have royal blood. But they done took my Jesus. They done buried my Jesus in Vatican Square, and they done took on our name. And now that we buried in Vatican Square, those who call themselves other than who they are took on our name, just like they're talking about those who call themselves Jews. We know who the Jews are. Truth don't change. Hitler went at you because he thought you was me. Truth don't change. We are today what our forefathers were yesterday. There's no such people as a black people. There's no such people as a colored or a Negro. Even those that's in Africa today, they call themselves black. Even those that's in other parts of Asia call themselves black today. But be who you were, because man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Now, let me go back to this brother. This brother went up on George Avenue to Temple 71 to meet with Brother R. Jones Bey. I took him up there. And I was so blessed because we have a brother, Clarence Pray for Ill. Clarence Pray for Ill went with us. See? And the reason why we was on this mission is because we all know that it ain't but one prophet, one temple, and one nation, and we got to come under one head, and they taking money. They taking money. You got people going down to the courthouse today. Going down to the courthouse today applying for their nationality, but still they saying that they are Moroccans. But Drew Ali said, why are we Moorish Americans? And the answer is because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. And who are these Moroccans? They are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Even I'm looking at this flag right here. The prophet told us there's no flag right of the American flag. I have to fly two flags. I can't fly one flag. Because when Noble Drew Ali came, he came and bought us two flags. He said national and international conjoined, making you Moorish American. And he said, why are we Moorish American? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. We are what our forefathers were. We're talking about nationality. We're talking about citizenship. Yeah, there's a lot going on. And a lot going on that we don't like what's going on. But in order to bring our people out of darkness into light, we got to follow the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and what he told us. He gave us some instructions. I'm going to tell you something. I had got some instructions one time to leave this temple and become a member of temple over there with Jones Bay. I got this from over there in George Avenue. But I went and talked to Brother Frazier Bay. He's the Grand Mufti. And there's another brother over there, Jones Bay, V. Jones Bay, Temple 78 in Baltimore. And they was coming to see me and V. Jones Bay and Brother Frazier Bay. We supposed to be working. Because by now we've had most of the people back under one head. If you understand what the mission is, the mission ain't about you and the mission ain't about me. But there was two brothers with them. I was giving them chumps a couple of $100 every week when they was coming inside to see us. And soon I come up up to the support group on Wednesday night. The first thing they say to me, all right, Lynch-Bey, don't come up here trying to start no stuff. Yeah, but you ain't say that when I'm giving you them couple of $100 every week when you come see me. So man, this thing is hurting, and if we don't do it, it's not gonna get done. We gotta bring this back under one head like the prophet left it. Everybody that went through in Chicago with whoever you went through, and if you say that Millie Ill is the Grand Sheik, then what you got to do is give it all those people who say Millie Ill is the Grand Sheik, and let's come under one and then sit down with Jones Bay, because Jones Bay and them say they the only one say that it ain't but one. And I remember the prophet knew what he was doing. The prophet knew what he was doing from day one. He put something over here, and he put something over there. And some people over here have something that people over here don't have. And some, because when Drew Ali went to that conference, he took all them brothers with him. And his spokesman was C. Kirkland Bey. And Jeremy Bey told all of us. And he taught me all the way up until he died. He said, we got to go back to see Jones Bay and then we got to go back under that grand body because that's where our instructions came from. The prophet gave us that. So you got a lot of people that used to be, say they was black, and say that your leader used to be in the Moorish Temple of America. We have a mission. Our mission is to save our people from the wrath of Allah, and we do that by teaching the people to be themselves. We got to get on the highways and byways. Noble Drew Ali bought us some literature. He bought us a Quran. He bought us a Moorish Quran. And in this Moorish Quran, it will redeem you from your sinful ways. And what is a sin? Drew Ali said it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. You know what? When we go to Sunday school, when we go to Quranic class, we're going to these classes because there are certain things in our character. There are certain things in our nature that we're trying to overcome. Man, I got Lucifer, I got Satan, I got the devil, I got the dragon, and I got the beast. And what people fail to realize, I was telling my man Graham Bay, I got to say it again. I kept reiterating to him that you have a lot of brothers and sisters are not the same brothers and sisters that they was 5 or 10 years ago. And the reason why that is because they're growing. They're trying to overcome. They're trying to overcome this weakness that's within them, because Drew Ali said it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the name and principles that delude to slavery. We meet the prophet in spirit and in truth. So now I'm with the brother, and he telling me, he said, man, I'm with you, man. If you right or if you wrong, we'll make a difference. I'm with you. You my man. I said, man, I don't need you with me if I'm wrong. Because the higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. Just like when that brother Cadillac, when that brother and him, I got this dude out the hole, they done went over to the chapter and tried to open up their own thing. You know what the chapter said? Say, I see why Lynch-Bey did that. He's trying to aid and assist you to help you grow so you could live, and you going back to marrying to die because they don't want you anyway, but because of the prophet Noble Drew Ali. I remember in 1975, we had this meeting. We had a meeting in Lewisburg Institution, and Nate Ball was there, Tumbleweed was there, all the brothers was there. And when they was there, I couldn't get no help because everybody thinking about them. Everybody thinking about them, dude, because they done made you do this, and they done made you do that. They got you wearing makeup, and now you still mad with me. You mad with me because he made you wear this. But I'm saying Allah gonna reveal you and me of our sinful way. We got to grow. We got to overcome. I don't need nobody around me. All I knew is Allah and the prophet. The Christians said, Lord, you got King Jesus. You don't need nobody else. But it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for me. I want to say this, especially to my nephew, because in 1975, I was one of the youngest dudes up there, and then I was in charge. And all these dudes was into everything that could not be told in words. I remember they had a temple meeting. Ask him. They had a temple meeting, and I went in there. I said, why are you going into that meeting? Because I want to know what's going on in my house. I want to know what's going on in my house, so I want to see who's sitting in there, and everybody talking about reading the prophet. And after the meeting, all the hey, Lynch-Bey, I said, but you can't serve two masters at the same time. So the key to the day, because I speak on a little and share the rest in Sunday school. This is how I do things. But we need to learn to love instead of hate. Learn to love ourselves. Learn to love our higher self. Because man has two selves. He have a higher self and he have a lower self. He got to crush one. He got to crush one under thy feet and tame the other to thy purpose. And for what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. And how did the prophet get to uplift the Moorish America? By teaching them to be themselves. So now we say we love Allah and the prophet. Stop faking. You can't serve two masters at the same time. You got to love one and despise the other. I'm holding on here. I ain't got no business around here either. I say I'm with Drew Ali, but I'm doing something else. I read the book when I feel like reading it, but I got more on my plate than I do the prophet. I got a million things I'm doing. I'm in my higher self, and I'm in my lower self. I'm in my lower self, and I'm in my lower self. And the lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. So now, Drew Ali founded the Moorish Science Temple of America. And this Moorish Science Temple of America redeems us from our sinful ways and to warn us of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. Now there's a wrath. There's a wrath of Allah. And this wrath coming, and this wrath telling you and me how to be ourselves. I remember my mother, when she took me to church, she told me to live a certain way. But guess what? There's a spirit in the air. There's a spirit of fire, water, earth, and air. And when you say that you love Allah and the prophet, he gonna work in your life. He gonna make things transpire in your life. So if you say that you're trying to reach a goal, and that goal is to try to live the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. See, this is what the Moorish Science Temple of America is all about. Noble Drew Ali was the first. I said in 1928 when Noble Drew Ali went through that conference, and he had Kirkman Bey as his interpreter. See, when we went to that conference, nobody was talking about religion at this conference. And the reason why nobody was talking about religion at the conference, because it wasn't a religious issue. Now we know that the issue was, and Drew Ali said there is but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which is lost. And that is through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, being taught universally to all nations in all lands. So I'm always talking about that we're talking about reparation. And we're talking about reparation, and the first people got to get in line with reparation is those who call themselves Negro, colored, and black. Because when you call yourself Negro, colored, and black, you are still a slave. You are still a slave to sin. Because it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the name and principles that delude to slavery. I heard that dude gave Jones Bay a lot of money, all the books that he got. He's supposed to. You got to pay your dues up. You got to help. See, Drew Ali told us too to keep the doors open. He said, keep the doors to the Moorish Science Temple of America open. They've been trying to close these doors for many years. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, is not going to let it take place. Because, like I say, I know 100 people that want to go down to the courthouse and say, I want to proclaim my nationality, but they only want to fly one flag. And the flag that they want to fly is this flag. But we're talking about citizenship. We're telling you that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And in the beginning, we're talking about nationality. Everybody have a nationality except you and me. We got to honor this flag. I know we don't want to honor it, but you got to honor it. Because this is the government on which going to have to give you your reparation. And once you get your reparation, they're going to fall by the wayside anyway, just like Queen Isabella. Look at all them diamonds that girl got. Look at all that stuff they got and they took from Africa. Africa is gone. You know who got Africa now? The Portuguese, the Dutch, and the French, all them are brothers. So when we talk about the French, we're talking about the people that's got Morocco today. Because when Morocco got its independence in 1956 from under the French rule, and them was French people. But if we're talking about Africa, and we talking about Africa being the cradle of civilization, how did the French come involved anyway? What did Queen Isabella do? What did Ferdinand do? What did Queen Elizabeth do? So many different queens that did stuff to you and me, and the history book will show it to you. So you got to come and get the lessons that Noble Drew Ali left us. We don't need all that other stuff. I know we say the sheiks did this and the sheiks did that, but once we attend our meetings, keep in line with all necessity, then we could bring this back under one head like the prophet left it. And they're doing so much good work to keep us from this mandate. And this is why I honor the sheiks and sheikas so much in the Moorish Science Temple of America. They're getting close. We're getting close. We're going to bring this back. Drew Ali said he's going to make the European enforce his law. And see, the way that you make the European enforce the law is by you living the law. So you got to live this. You got to live love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We're not telling you to live nothing else. We're telling you that you're not Negro, you're not colored, and you're not black, and these names was given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and last till that we say 1779. We know that it was given to us in 1774. But it wasn't officially on record until 1779 because the United States getting their independence until 1776 from under the French rule. That's talking about you and me. That's giving you a mandate. That's giving you something that you could use to redeem yourself from that which was lost. And when you're talking about going to the government, because everybody's talking about it now, everybody. People is talking about reparation. And the only way that you can get a reparation is going back to the slave trade. And during the slave trade, who were you? Who were you during the slave trade? Now, I remember One of my friends was Negro. My other friend was colored. My other friend was black. And there there's Afro-Americans, and there's everything. But truth don't change. Over 2,000 years ago, Chinese was Chinese. Over 2,000 years ago, Germans was Germans. Over 2,000 years ago, Moorish Americans was Moorish Americans. But guess what? Noble Drew Ali gave us a lesson about when we went in Spain from 7-Eleven. And when he went in Spain, he was telling us to stop doing this and to stop doing that. And I had talked about it in the meeting the other night, and brother got messed up because I'm telling the brothers, man, to repeat from your sinful ways and get that stuff back to the Europeans and come out of Europe. Give that back to her. Stop licking and sucking and doing all those things that your father. And then, man, Lynch-Bey really crazy now. He telling us we can't do this without a woman, but the woman gonna be the one gonna have to save us. See? Because the first teacher is the sister. And the sister gonna have to say, okay, now, husband, you know that Drew Ali told us from day one that we're not supposed to be doing all this stuff. He said, get that back to Caesar, what belonged to Caesar. And our sisters, we got to start raising them up, raising the babies up. It ain't going to be overnight. But we're going to have to go back to what our forefathers gave us. And what he gave us was love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice being taught universally to all nations, that we love our brothers and sisters and tell them the truth. That they live in peace, have freedom, and justice will come to us all. So that's real crazy. Prophet talking about in 7-Eleven, we went into Spain, he talking about to stop doing this and to stop doing that. Everybody's doing it now. I remember, and I talked about it. I remember I went to a little place one time, and I was gone for a few minutes. And when I came back, all my partners and all my friends, they had started doing some things that was diametrically opposed. When we grew up, it was certain things that we wouldn't do in the neighborhood. Certain things we wouldn't do with a girl. Certain things we wouldn't lose our head in doing. And when we use the head, then we don't want to marry now. We want to talk bad about it, but we're talking about our sisters. We're talking about our mothers. We're talking about our cousins. We have an obligation. So don't tell me that you're really trying to be with the prophet when you're doing everything to knock us down from us rising like a cedar on the mountain. He said, because when you rise like a cedar on the mountain, your head will be seen above the trees of the forest. So now we are on the Moorish Voice television broadcast. And now we're on the Moorish Voice television broadcast. We're telling the Asiatics to learn to love instead of hate. We're talking about the Asiatic Muslim. We say you are Asiatic because they ain't but two formulations. One of them is Asiatic and the other is European. And you sure not European, and you're also a Muslim. Because you're a Muslim because you submit your will to Allah. Now, how do you submit your will to Allah? You got a lot of will to submit to Allah. One of the ways that you submit your will to Allah is give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. Just like when they talk about the, where it is right here, when they talk about the royal blood. When you talk about the royal blood, some of the great father through which Jesus came was Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. So now we talking about Mary. And Mary had a mother. And her mother's name was Anna. And Anna had a husband. And his name was Joachim. And now you're talking about Joachim, you got to talk about Boaz, because Ruth married Boaz, and these are the two great pillars that everybody used, the European and everybody else. And what did they do? They done took it and used it as mockery in that, because they done stole it from me and you. They done took my forefathers, all this stuff that they had, they done took our forefathers, buried them in Vatican Square. Now we looking crazy. We looking crazy because we are somebody other than who we are. This is not what our forefathers taught us. They told us about learn to love instead of hate. And you got to understand that when you are hating yourself. I'm hating myself. I'm hating myself because I'm not doing what the prophet told me to do. I'm trying to serve the carnal customs of the mere ideas of man. Things that have never done me any good, but has always harmed me. my diets, my reading ability, my loving ability, and I'm with a woman, not me personally, but I'm with a woman that's done everything. She's doing everything that's opposed to God, and the reason why she's doing those things opposed to God, because I'm not telling her to do something else. Because then if I tell her to do something else, then I ain't gonna get that lustful blessing that I want from that holler. So Drew Ali told us, say it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the name and principles that delude to slavery. For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. And how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish America? By teaching them to be themselves. And when you begin to be yourself, when you begin to teach your children to be themselves, then you'll be closer to the resurrection. Because the resurrection of the dead is not confined to the Jew or the Greek. It is the heritage of every man of every time and clime, and I'm here a demonstrator of man. That's why Jesus said, they put me in a tomb. And he said, then I wrestled with the conquerors of men. He said, I conquered death, stamped upon him a robe, and brought immortality to light, and painted on the walls of time a rainbow for the sons of men. And what I've done, all men can do. The gospel of the resurrection of the dead is not confined to the Jew or Greek. It is the heritage of every man of every time and clime, and I'm here a demonstrator of the power of man. So ain't no need of talking to me. Ain't no need of asking me no question. If you want to really learn about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, visit the Moorish Science Temple of America. They still have a few around. They got the Moorish this and the Moorish that, but they have a few Moorish Science Temple of America. And you can go in the Moorish Science Temple of America, get the literature that the prophet brought us, and learn the truth about yourself. Learn about your higher self. Learn about your lower self. Learn that the lower self is an illusion and will pass away. The higher self is a law in man and cannot pass away. So if an illusion will pass away and the higher self can't pass away, so man have two selves. You have a higher self and you have a lower self. But you got to crush one of these selves. You can't have both of them. You want to serve two masters at the same time. You know, I do the same thing. I want to do it because it's more convenient for me. So don't misunderstand when I'm talking about the higher self and when I'm talking about the lower self, because it ain't but two. But you got to crush one. You got to crush one under thy feet and tame the other to that purpose. And that's what we need to understand here in the Moorish Science Temple of America. The lesson ain't about nobody else. The lesson is about yourself. The only reason why I haven't overcame these foes yet that I have is because it's been hard. You know, when you go through trials and tribulations, especially when you're under adverse conditions, you got to overcome those things. You know, like when you go to the church, when you go to the synagogue, the preacher teaches. And he's teaching you to love God and hate the devil. And the devil is nothing but a thought pattern. Your higher self and your lower self is a thought pattern. You got to crush one and tame the other. But when you're trying to learn to love instead of hate, when you're trying to bring your children up, see, because it don't make no difference how much this or how much that anyone have, because the European will take it from you anywhere you want them. So the key to me talking to my listening audience today is because we have two selves, a higher self and a lower self. And when you're in your lower self, then you're no benefit to me and I'm no benefit to you. Because this is, the lesson say, for what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? And the answer is for the uplifting of fallen humanity. He said, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? And it say, by teaching them to be themselves. But when he teaches you to be yourself, he's teaching you to be your higher self. We need to understand that when I'm in my lower self, when I'm in the murky ethers of the flesh, I'm not in my higher self. I'm not with Allah. Allah and man is one. But through carnal thoughts and words and deeds, man tore himself away from Allah. He debased himself. You debase yourself from the great God Allah. Because before the advent of slavery, before we went into Spain in 7-11, we was living a moral and clean life. But man, we got over there and got caught up. Man, I don't want to go over there. I don't want to go over there. But I need to go somewhere because I have children. I have a granddaughter. I have friends. And I have an obligation while I'm here on this manifest to tell them about the last prophet in these days and time. To tell them of the wrath that's sure to come upon the earth if we don't learn to be ourselves. Know what Ali said, and I want to say it again. He said he's going to make the Europeans enforce his law. We don't know when it is. All we got to do is get ourselves together. But the key to this now is all of us Moorish Americans that say that we Moorish Americans. Because I heard somebody say today, I've been in the Moorish Science Temple of America before I went over there 5 years. I've been in there 5 years along with you. What have I overcame? What have I grown in that 5 years that could be beneficial to those around me? Because what Noble Drew Ali brought us today is the same thing that he brought us yesterday. He founded the Moorish Science Temple of America for the uplifting of fallen humanity. It's a divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guides of his father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father God Allah. We're talking about the fallen stage of humanity. I was in the fallen stage of humanity. And the prophet saved me by teaching me to be myself. A lot of us, now I'd like to give honor to another brother who went to a home going. They call him Bubbly. He's from Portland, Oregon right here. And man, we learned the lesson because if you're in a Sunni community, a Muslim brother, and you pass, you're going to be buried in 3 days. And the brother was buried in 3 days. Some of the family couldn't even get to him because there's a law. I'm kind of glad the prophet, changed it. See, Drew Ali gave us instructions too, but if somebody passed phone and you're in the Sunni community, I want to come there just to give the family support, but you can't do it if you're somewhere else. But Drew Ali bought us some things. He fixed it for you, and he fixed it for me. You got to understand that when you begin, I mentioned just recently about Ruth, and I mentioned about Boaz. And when you're talking about Boaz, and when you're talking about Ruth, you're talking about King David, you're talking about Solomon, you're talking about Hezekiah, you're talking about so many different people that come through our genealogy. So when you're talking about Vatican and talking about who is the royal blood, you stole my forefathers. You stole my genealogy. You done took everything from me and grabbed it onto yourself. Like I say, Africa is gone. You go some parts of Africa right now, they take the animals and move them from one place and move them to another place. The same thing they did right there in Morocco. The people that's in Morocco today are European. The people that was there before, like you and me, we was moved out of there. The same thing in South Africa today. When you go to South Africa today, you have Europeans in South Africa that's from Europe. They're not from Africa. These Europeans that took over the whole world, this is why they're trying to keep you and me from reparation. And when we talk about reparation, then we can hook everything back up like it was because we got the lesson. We have all the lessons because it was given to us. So we got to be who our forefathers were and know about our history. When we talk about the slave trade come through West Africa mostly. When you begin to look at all the brothers and sisters that's in West Africa, they're Moors. They're Moors. They're the torchbearers of civilization. So The Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to redeem us from our sinful ways. I'm honored that I'm able to come on this Moorish Voice broadcast to talk about certain things that will help you study what you are studying. I'm not trying to give it all to you, but I'm trying to give you a direction to go, because you got to understand that nationality is important. Everybody have a nationality except you and me. And you have to proclaim your nationality to hook yourself back up with the family of nations, because a lot of the old timers are leaving. And Rome is doing everything that they can to get you drowned into sin so you can forget all about nationality. Because if you have no place on which you could trace yourself back, then ain't no reparation for you and ain't no reparation for me. Because in order for me to talk about reparation, I'm going to have to know who I am, who my forefathers were, and what Noble Drew Ali bought. So I want to recite something, and I want to recite Act 6 of our divine constitution and bylaws, and then I will say the Moorish American prayer. Act 6 of our divine constitution and bylaws. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now. And all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. I'm honored, pleasured, as it is a duty. I now will recite the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Wade in the water, wade in the water, Muslim, wade in the water. Drew Ali done trouble the water.